Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? You ever have this happen? You watch a movie, you read a book, you think about something, you're talking to somebody about something, and it makes you think about something else, and then that makes you think about something else, and that makes you think about something else, and next thing you know, you've got this whole tree of stuff ideas that are coming to you. This happened to me yesterday a little bit, and it happened because I'm watching a bunch of movies, and I'm watching these movies for the purpose of genre emulation. Um, Mostly because I'm getting involved in this. It's a one-shot, but still, it should be a fun little exercise. Runeslinger's kind enough to run a game of Hollow Earth Expedition, a little one-shot for us, for myself and for Jason, Dark Age of Roleplay Games. And so we, had the chance to, have this little thread and make up a couple characters, just a real brief of like, why are we together, what do they like, and which was a lot of fun just in and of itself. And so I'm going to be playing Spencer Halliday, or Halsey, I guess, is my nickname, according to Chuck. And Jason's going to be playing Charlie Day. You can be Chuck, and so we'll see how those two fellas interact with each other tomorrow night. So check out Runeslinger's channel, and it should be a hoot. Anyhow, these guys are bigger movie buffs than I am. I mean, certainly part of the idea of emulating something like Hollow Earth Expedition is go watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so I rewatched it. I'm familiar with that movie. It was a lot of fun to do that again. That was hardly like work. However. What I watched, which is not something I'm as into, is Humphrey Bogart. I watched a movie last night. It was Treasure of the Sierra Madre. So that was a more, different type of movie, but just kind of emulating what are people like back then, I believe. Part of it. However, another movie that came up in our little queue was for the All for One Regime Diabolique group. Anthony discovered this movie on YouTube. None of us had known about, I don't believe, called Swashbuckler. And it's with a younger, more fit James Earl Jones, and also with Robert Shaw, Quint from Jaws. And so it was a fun little movie. It wasn't the best movie in the entire world, but it was a lot of fun. Another little take on swashbuckling. However, there I am watching Robert Shaw, and I think of one of my favorite movies of all times, which is Jaws. And I saw this movie when it came out. It's like 1976 or 77, 75 comes out. And I saw this movie with my father. He brought us to the theater when it was in the 99-cent theater in Cheshire, Connecticut, and scared the bejesus out of me like it was supposed to as a kid. And just like a bunch of other people that year, I didn't want to go in the water, didn't want to go in the swimming pool, didn't even want to go in my dad's waterbed. That was scary enough. Later on, as I grew up, I discovered that I liked the movie for different reasons. And so I had this other friend, Jason, and we used to watch this flick all the time. And, we knew the lines. And, I found that the movie was not about a shark. It's about these three guys. It's about three men in a boat. It's about Hooper. It's about Chief Brody. It's about Quint. Three very different men put together in this situation, very different motivations, very different personalities, and putting them in this rather stressful situation, watching them bond, watching them, rub and grate against each other, and, have little quarrels, some of which involve picking up machetes and baseball bats and smashing radios, but, coming to understand each other, and revealing things about each other. It's about character development. It's about character, exposure, and about the relationships that develop amongst these three men. And I started to think about role-playing games, and thinking about how that can happen, whether it's intentional or unintentional. The other movie, like the Treasure of the Sierra Madre, you see a different sort of set of circumstances with three men going out with gold fever, and it's not as happy of a movie in a lot of ways, and there are some dark elements in that movie. There's dark elements in Jaws, but you see a different kind of camaraderie develop, and it's more tenuous, and at the end of the movie there's some camaraderie of a sort. But once again, it's more about the characters. It's not about the gold. It's not about the shark. So I was thinking more about role-playing games and about the game I'm going to play. We've just developed these two characters. We developed Chuck and Halsey, and it's a one-shot, so we're going to see how they interact with each other. And I've talked about a whole bunch on my channel the idea that I'm not big into this big character concept that I'm going to go create and this big backstory. For Philippe in All for One. Okay, he's the youngest of 7 sons. He's really good with a sword. He's got something to prove. Okay, let's press play, see what happens. And the other guys, I think, had a little slightly more involved backstories, but, not a heck of a lot more. And I like to discover who my character is in play. And we've all, I believe, in that game, discovered things about our characters that we did not know. We brought up to each other things about the other person's character. We've seen how their relationships actually end up forging throughout play, and we start, both in the games, in the sessions, and afterwards we've talked about, what's going on with these characters, what's going on with their relationships with each other. that sort of thing. So I'm not the guy that's going to sit there and plan beforehand and say, okay, well, we want to have this kind of story and these kind of character arcs, and how are our characters doing to each other? Do you think there's enough tension there? Do we need to put something else in? I'm not a planner. That's not my intent. But I like to see what happens organically, and frequently stuff happens organically that's really rich and interesting, and the game becomes less about doing these missions for the king. It's less about running guns to people in Brazil and then flying to Barbados. Less about the Hollow Earth. We'll find out what happens in the Hollow Earth, or wherever we end up. It's about that, but it's also about these characters and the relationships with each other. Now, this is not to say that I'm going to completely go against all the things I've said before. I like games that involve action. I like games where I like a little hack and slash. I like to go out and kill some orcs, or some Cardinals Guards, or some werewolves. I love doing stuff like that. I love the whole puzzle, the whole adventure. I love adventure. I love having grand schemes as characters, and we're going to take over the world or whatever else is we want to do. I love all that part of role playing. However, I've enjoyed in games in the past, developing relationships with the other characters, discovering who we are. And I think that game of Lamentations of the Flame Princess that I was involved in, it was a lot more like Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Nobody trusted anybody, and with good reason. We shouldn't have. Who knows if Chuck should trust Halsey or not? I wouldn't. He's a liar, but not the worst liar in the entire world. But I've enjoyed the relationships that have developed with the characters in the All for One game, as short as it's been. It's funny. You got Jaws here, and you wouldn't think it's a movie about camaraderie, but it's a movie about camaraderie. It's a movie about these relationships that develop between these three men. And our All for One game has been about, in a lot of ways, about the relationships that have developed between these four guys. We can only see three of them at a time because that's how it works with four game masters, but you get the idea. And I'll be interested to see, in just a brief one-shot, what's the dynamic between, Halsey and Chuck. That should be fun, too. So, I learned... I just never thought about Jaws as it related to role-playing games until yesterday. Just saw Robert Shaw, just started thinking about that, started thinking about Jaws, watched the Humphrey Bogart movie. I was like, yeah, that really makes sense. So I'm glad I kind of had those little epiphanies, for lack of anything else. Today it's a little bit more lighthearted movie watching. I'm gonna watch hopefully another Indiana Jones movie, and maybe watch Journey to the Center of the Earth, just because I loved that flick when I was a kid. It's on Netflix, so that's research, right? I'm doing my homework. So that's what I've got today. I really, just enjoyed having that little bit of insight. So what do you think about all that? Tell me.